Baseline Facetime podcast, and we've got another great episode coming at you right now. Let's go. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Baseline Facetime podcast. I'm your host, Troy, and this is episode 35, recording on March 25th, 2021. 35 episodes in, and today's episode is all about the NBA trade deadline, which was today at 3 p.m., just a few hours ago, actually. And so there's a lot for us to catch up on together. So if you're trying to figure out who your favorite team may have picked up, if you're trying to figure out who I think are the winners and losers of today's trade deadline and the days leading up to it, this is a good episode for you to be tuning in to today. So we've got quite a few teams making deals again, a pretty crazy line of events that we're just going to read through, kind of break down together. We'll get into some other stuff toward the end of the podcast and catch up on some standings and give out our baseline baller of the week and catch up on some March Madness toward the end as well. But for now, let's focus on that trade deadline. So crazy day of deals. I'm just going to go in order of the way that I kind of followed them and the way that I kind of received them and the way the world received them, kind of in that order. So one of the first breaks of the day was Evan Fournier of the Orlando Magic is now heading to Boston for 2 second-round picks. I think that's a pretty good deal for Boston to give up 2 seconds for a guy that is a pretty legitimate scorer in the NBA. I mean, he's 16, 17 a game, I think, this year, actually. Let me double check on that. But Evan Fournier, in my opinion, is a pretty good signing for the Boston Celtics. Yeah, this year with the Orlando Magic, he's averaging over 19 per game, a career 14 and a half a game scorer. To get him for 2 second-round picks for the Celtics who are trying to contend in the Eastern Conference, I think is a pretty good deal for them. Nikola Vucevic, you'll notice that the Orlando Magic were doing a little bit of selling today. Their all-star caliber center is heading to Chicago. In return, they are getting Wendell Carter and 2 first-round picks. So it's going to be interesting to see how Nikola Vucevic, whatever you want to say, how he pairs with Zach LaVine in Chicago. Kind of a cool duo there. The Cavaliers traded JaVale McGee to the Nuggets for 2 seconds. Not going to spend a whole lot of time on that one. The Denver Nuggets are able to get Aaron Gordon. So again, Orlando Magic getting rid of 3 of their starters from the Orlando Magic. Aaron Gordon to the Nuggets, Gary Harris and R.J. Hampton, as well as a first-round pick going back to the Orlando Magic there. So Orlando certainly in the rebuilding phase this year and beyond. Bielitsa from the Sacramento is heading to the Miami Heat. The 76ers got George Hill in return for Tony Bradley, Terrence Ferguson, and 2 second-rounders. Norman Powell, the pretty good scorer for the Toronto Raptors, is heading to the Portland Trailblazers for Gary Trent and Rodney Hood. So just a couple guards in return for Norman Powell. That's an offensive firepower team. You add Norman Powell to the mix out there, it's kind of scary. Of course, I think that they are healthy, Portland that is, with Damian Lillard and CJ both back in the lineup as of late. So see what Norman Powell can do in the mix for them. Another sharpshooter with J.J. Redick heading to the Dallas Mavericks. Not sure what that deal consisted of exactly, but J.J. Redick to the Mavericks. I'm a big J.J. fan myself. We'll see how he can do with Luka Doncic. One of the biggest names of the day and one that's gotten shipped off is Victor Oladipo is heading, or he's, what did LeBron say? He's taking his talents to South Beach and joining the Miami Heat. He's taking his talents to South Beach and joining Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, kind of forming a big 3 down there for Miami. In return for Victor Oladipo, Miami sends Avery Bradley and Kelly Olynyk back out to Houston. Daniel Tice from Boston, notable big man for them, is heading to Chicago as well. All right, and that's all of the big names that we have on. Again, that's all from today. We'll break it down just a little bit more, but those are the big names that are heading out, and here's a few more that have been bought out, kind of post deadline, who are going to be finding their way onto another team, and that is veteran big man LaMarcus Aldridge. So we'll see where he lands. I believe I read somewhere today, and you can't always trust what you read online from some of these quote unquote sources, because sometimes they'll give you the exact opposite of what's actually happening. I noticed that today. We'll get into that later. But LaMarcus Aldridge bought out, and one of the front runners is believed to be the Miami Heat. So Miami Heat are not believed to be done, just at the deadline. We'll see if they can make some more moves. A few more. Andre Drummond bought out. See where he can land. I think one of the front runners for him is believed to be the Brooklyn Nets. Go figure. See if they can get a big man like Andre onto that team. Would just be a nightmare for opponents. Lonzo Ball, believed to be on the trading block, or whatever you want to say, at deadline day, is staying put with the Pelicans. And then perhaps one of the bigger situations that we've seen developing over the last, week or two, couple weeks, I guess. Maybe it was expected a little longer, but Kyle Lowry, he was pretty much good as gone. It was believed to be this time yesterday. But Kyle Lowry is staying with the Toronto Raptors. And to break that down, if you don't know what I'm talking about, over the last few hours, it's been a crazy chain of events, featuring Kyle Lowry and just news surrounding him. So in his last game, or believed to be his last game with the Raptors last night, Wednesday the 24th, Kyle Lowry throws up the peace sign to the camera as he heads down the tunnel. It's just all the signs are pointing to this being Kyle's final game with the Toronto Raptors, the team that he was able to finally bring a championship to a couple years ago, as we know. And then we see Kyle Lowry in his post-game press conference get a FaceTime call from Drake. We know what that conversation probably ended up looking like. Drake, a longtime Toronto Raptors fan, likely thanking Kyle for, his contributions to Toronto and the city and things like that. It's looking like Kyle Lowry is as good as gone at this point. Kyle, also, another thing for him, he celebrates his 35th birthday today, trade deadline day, and he's turning 35, man. Kyle Lowry's been doing it in this league for a long time. I remember him at Villanova when I was just a youngster, and he's still doing it. He's still doing it and performing at a pretty high level. And then on top of all that, there was just a ton of, if you follow any basketball page, especially Raptors pages, of course, there's a lot of, sentimental posts calling Lowry the best Raptor ever, featuring some of his highlights and that kind of thing. And so, heading into today and up until 3 p.m. today, it sure looked like Kyle Lowry had just played his last game as a Toronto Raptor. In fact, there were a few reports around the league that Kyle Lowry had been informed by his agent that, you're going to Philly kind of thing. The 76ers were very much in the mix for Kyle Lowry, and his agent told him, he said, prepare yourself to be heading to Philadelphia, which is actually where Kyle Lowry's from. It would have been kind of cool to see him return home toward the end of his career, but it didn't pan out. So the Sixers, again, as a Sixers fan, I was able to keep up with what they were doing, in this ordeal with Kyle Lowry. And I read some things that were just going back to that you can't trust what you see on Twitter or, whatever, NBA breaking news. There was one particular post that said it is believed that the Sixers are on the 1 yard line about to strike a deal for Kyle Lowry. It's over. This was probably around noon, maybe 11 a.m. today. And I was preparing myself. Kyle was probably preparing himself to head to Philadelphia. And they said they are on the 1 yard line about to punch it in. It's about to be a done deal. I believe that Woj might have said that. I don't know, but it wasn't like a non-reliable source. I actually saw it in a few places, and um, then not too much later, you see the Sixers pick up George Hill in a deal for a couple bench guys and a couple second round picks, and you're like, I wonder if they're still in the mix for Kyle Lowry. Half hour later, Sixers are no longer in the mix for Kyle Lowry, and it's like, okay, they were just on the 1 yard line. What changed? What changed? And so Kyle Lowry ended up not getting dealt. There were a couple other teams in the mix, including the Miami Heat, including the Lakers. I don't know if they were truly in the mix, but they were kind of a dark horse in that Kyle Lowry pursuit. So 3 contenders going after the veteran point guard. Allegedly, again, the reason as to why Kyle Lowry was not dealt on deadline day, a big part of that just had to do with the Toronto Raptors asking price. Go figure. So Toronto allegedly wanted Tyler Hero and a combination of Tyler Hero and something for Kyle Lowry from the Miami Heat, and then it's believed that the deal on the table between the Sixers and the Raptors that the Sixers did not bite the bullet on was to send Tyrese Maxey, the young, quick offensive guard from Kentucky, Matisse Thybulle, the defensive specialist, one of the best defensive players I've ever seen, actually, and he's still coming off the bench, working on his offense a little bit. But Tyrese Maxey, Matisse Thybulle, 2 young guys, and 2 first-round picks for Kyle Lowry, the 35-year-old Kyle Lowry. And the Sixers, Daryl Morey was not willing to do that. He just wasn't willing to do that. And so whatever you want to think about that, were the Raptors asking too much? Maybe. Is Kyle Lowry a well-respected veteran point guard in this league and clearly has proven that he can do it in the playoffs, unlike some of the years prior to when they won the ring? Kyle Lowry's good. Respect, show respect where it's due. And Kyle Lowry is good, and obviously Daryl Morey didn't think he was worth giving up 2 guys that are, in the rotation, Matisse Thybulle especially, a key piece to this Sixers team right now and working on the offensive end, like I said. But Sixers were unwilling to part ways with those 2 youngsters as well as 2 firsts. And as a Sixers fan, I don't particularly have a problem with it. Sure, I would have liked Kyle Lowry, but I don't know if I would have liked it at that price. And that was obviously the determination that the Sixers made as well. All right, so we're going to go into just a different segment with this trade deadline, kind of give you my take on some of the trades and some of the deals and some of the winners and losers. And we're actually going to go through this segment calling it dub or scrub. And so dub means, like a win. So dub, if I like the deal or I like what the team was able to do, and scrub if it was just something that I did not like. So dub or scrub on a few of these that we've highlighted. So Evan Fournier to the Celtics, I'm calling that a dub for the Celtics. To get a scorer like that, throw him into the mix. Already have a lot of wing depth out there, but to throw Evan Fournier into the mix is a good solid win for them. And to only lose a couple second round picks, I think is what I said, is big. So I'm going to call it a dub for Evan Fournier and the Boston Celtics. The Magic getting rid of basically everyone on their team but Terrence Ross and Markelle Fultz. 3 guys that are in the starting lineup are now gone. Nikola Vucevic, Aaron Gordon, and Eric Fournier, like we mentioned, or Evan Fournier, like we mentioned. So I'm going to call that a scrub. I get it. They're rebuilding, clearly. And did they get a lot of picks in return? Yes. Did they get a couple players in return? Yes. But if you're a Magic fan right now, you're not. No one gets excited about rebuilding. So I'm going to call that one a scrub. Not particularly crazy about what they were able to do, but I do get it to some sense. The Philadelphia 76ers, although they did not get Kyle Lowry, who I think was their main point of interest at the deadline, they were able to get a solid backup point guard in George Hill. So I'm calling that a dub for them. I think George Hill is going to help them tremendously off of bench. And the bench has struggled at times this year. There's no doubt about it. They still are even currently. This last game that they had, Who'd they even play? I don't even remember. They played the Knicks, and then they played the Golden State Warriors without Stephen Curry. That's who it was. They played the Warriors, had a huge lead. Bench comes in, kind of gives it away. Warriors ended up taking the lead into the fourth quarter. Starters come back in and able to get it done. But that just points to the need that the 76ers have for added bench depth, with which they get in George Hill, the, I think, 33, 34-year-old point guard, should be a tremendous help for them and not a major price for them. So I'm going to call that a dub. The Thunder did what they do best over these last 2 years, and they got a lot of picks. They're still stacking these picks. So the Oklahoma City Thunder have 34 picks over the next 7 drafts. Let me repeat that. So the NBA drafts, by the way, are only 2 rounds, and they have 34 picks over the next 7. So, I mean, if they have that many picks, I mean, the average team, or you're supposed to, have what? A draft pick around for 7 years is 14 picks. They have 20 more than the norm. It's crazy. 17 first-round picks and 17 second-round picks. You want to talk about rebuilding. But, hey, I'm going to give them props. I'm going to call that one a dub because they're sticking to it. Yeah, I mean, they just are. They're sticking to this idea of rebuilding, and they're stocking up on draft picks. We'll see what they are able to do with those, see which ones they're going to trade, and so on and so forth. But they're keeping it interesting. I'm calling that a dub. I'm definitely calling the Miami Heat getting Victor Oladipo a dub. If he, Jimmy, and Bam are able to stay healthy, obviously Victor being one of the bigger question marks there, but if those 3 guys stay healthy, that's a dangerous, dangerous big 3. Not to mention the likes of Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson. Again, they're the front runner for LaMarcus Aldridge. They got Goran Dragic. I mean, it's a solid-looking squad. That's a solid-looking squad. I would not want to play them if I were, one of those top dogs in the East. I wouldn't want to play them second round, first round. They're the defending Eastern Conference champions. Like, that's tough. So that's a dub for the Miami Heat, able to get Victor Oladipo. Probably the biggest name, honestly, to move. One of the bigger names to move, along with a couple of guys from the Magic. But on this deadline day, Miami Heat able to get that done. Pretty good one. I'm going to call the Raptors' decision to not move Kyle Lowry a scrub decision. They were just unwilling to lower their price. And again, and this isn't necessarily the Raptors' fault, but the flavor around the league, or the kind of understanding around the league heading into this trade deadline day, was that Kyle Lowry was on the move. Like, he was out. And because they were unwilling to lower their price, Kyle Lowry's staying. And it's just kind of an awkward situation now. They did get rid of Norman Powell, so that one's kind of, that's I guess a good decision for them, to get rid of that. Because both those guys were believed to be on the move, so they got one of the 2 out. But to not lower their price for Kyle Lowry, who's a free agent, by the way, at the end of the season, kind of a scrub decision there. The Mavericks getting J.J. Redick. Again, I love J.J. Redick. I'm calling that a dub. I think he'll add spacing alongside Luka and those guys, and so we'll see what he can do in Dallas. And then my biggest confusion, or one that I'm not necessarily calling a dub or a scrub decision, but one that I'm just kind of confused by, is Rajon Rondo to the Los Angeles Clippers for Lou Williams and 2 second-round picks. All right, let me say that again. Rondo to the Clippers for Lou Williams and 2 second-round picks. So we got 2 veteran guards. You got a guy like Lou Williams who's 34. You've got, how old's Rondo? Let me look here. Rondo's 35. So 2 guys that have been in the league for quite some time and have been on quite a few teams as well. And they couldn't be more opposite, in my opinion, just in terms of like veteran guards. You got one who his IQ is off the charts, and Rondo, not to say Lou Williams doesn't have great IQ, basketball IQ, but I mean, Rondo is such a pass-first point guard. It's not even funny. a defensive-minded guy, long arms, a triple-double guy in his prime. And then you got a guy like Lou Williams, who is such an offensive-minded, offensive scorer, like get me buckets, pick and roll, pick and pop. Like he's just a scorer, flat out scorer. Can get to the rim. He's crafty. He can shoot, of course, and just very different kind of styles of play when you think about two guys that have been in the league for such a long time, and yet they're the only two players featured in this trade, along with the 2 second-round picks, with Lou Will heading to Atlanta. But just kind of a odd move to me. Lou Williams has had a down. When I saw this trade, I was like, why? Lou Williams is a bucket getter. Why would you? I mean, Rondo's good, but personally, I like Lou Williams. And, I had to look at the stats. I mean, Lou Williams has played in 42 games this year. Nothing wrong with that. His minutes are down significantly. He was averaging close to 29 minutes a game last year, averaging just under 22 minutes a game this year. Don't know, exactly why. I haven't watched a ton of Clippers games. And because of that, even, his points are down. So he was a guy who averaged 22, 20, 18 his last 3 years, 22 points, 20 points, 18 points. And then this year, averaging 12. He hasn't averaged 12 since 2012. It's a long time. It's 9 years ago. So something's off clearly in Lou Williams' production, his minutes, because I don't think the Clippers make this trade a couple years ago. I don't know if they make this trade last year, but something with those numbers tells me that's a reason why they wanted Rondo. His leadership, to change something up. Maybe they're in more need of a point guard than they are scoring. They got guys like Kawhi and Paul George and and Pat Bev and whoever else. I don't know. I don't know. I just kind of scratched my head on that one. But nonetheless, those are our trade deadline deals. March 25th, 2021. Trade deadline was exciting. That was a lot to watch out for. Some big names on the move, some big names staying put. Some other NBA news and notes pretty quickly here. LaMelo Ball, he was our baseline baller of the week last week, or week before, and had a season-ending wrist injury. So, man, just hurts. Yeah, he was having such a great rookie year. Front runner by far, it seemed to be, for Rookie of the Year this year. Season-ending injury, that just sucks, So, hopefully he'll get back to normal next season and continue doing what he's doing. LeBron and AD still need to get healthy for the Lakers. Lakers have been on a bit of a skid, I think, lately. Need to get those guys healthy. Just better for the league when LeBron's healthy. Let's just say that. The Jazz, as a result, have a 3-game lead on the Suns, followed by the Clippers and the Lakers. So Jazz are kind of expanding that lead ever so slightly out there in the Western Conference. In the East, it really seems like a 3-dog race. The Sixers, Bucks, and Nets are all within a game and a half. And then you've got the 4 through 9 seeds are all within 2 games of each other. But the 4th seeded Hornets are 8.5 back in the Eastern Conference. So literally you've got 3 teams, the top 3 dogs, within a game and a half. And then seeds 4 through 9 are even tighter, just a little further back. So the first 3 seeds, we kind of see how those are going to shape out. Just depends on what order, of course. And so it's a 3-dog race out there, and it's getting exciting. Let's just say that. So some notable moves from those top 3 teams in the East. We mentioned Sixers getting George Hill. We got the Bucks getting PJ Tucker, I think more last week. He was on the move before the deadline. And then the Nets, of course, we know what they've done this year in signing James Harden, but they have potential to get Andre Drummond in a potential buyout. So be on the lookout for that. That would be scary. Once these guys, the one thing with the Nets, I mean, they still haven't played a lot together. This big 3 that they formed and this offensive firepower that they've established. Need to get those guys on the floor together. We'll see how things shape out in the Eastern Conference. I don't know who I give the edge to right now. Again, Sixers are a game and a half up, but those Nets are good, man. The Bucks are very good too. We know what they're capable of. Obviously, they haven't shown it in the playoffs. That could factor in to who people see as the favorite in the Eastern Conference, but it's going to be a good race. And it's a three-dog race pretty clearly. So, and again, when playoffs roll around, who knows? Maybe Miami will figure it out a little more with Victor Oladipo. Maybe Boston will make a run. But at least regular season standings-wise, it's a three-dog race out there. All right, now it's time for our baseline baller of the week. Going to Tobias Harris, the all-star snub. One of a few guys that think they're a snub from the all-star team. But the 76ers are rolling without Joel Embiid post-all-star break. Joel with that knee injury, he'll be reevaluated soon and get back on the court likely in a week or two, I think. But the 76ers, unlike they were able to do early in the NBA regular season, are still sitting and winning, sitting at the top of the Eastern Conference and winning games without Joel Embiid. They are sitting at 31-13, which I believe is their best record since Allen Iverson took them to the finals about 20 years ago now. Hard to believe that that's about 20 years ago. Sixers have won 9 of their last 10, and Tobias, over these last 10 days, here's why he is our baseline baller of the week, not just for filling in with Joel out, but for winning games while Joel's out. So his last 10 days, he's had a game of 23, 9 boards, 7 assists. He had a 30-piece the next day, 19, 9 boards, 4 assists, 29 points, 11 boards, 8 assists, 20 points, 4 boards, 4 assists, and a couple nights ago against the Warriors in Golden State. At Golden State, 25 points, 13 boards, and 4 assists. And again, Sixers are winning games. That's why he is our baseline baller of the week. What do you say we close with a bit of March Madness? So if you haven't been able to enjoy or didn't enjoy the first and second round of March Madness, we are now in the Sweet 16. Last weekend was such a joy. I mean, there were so many upsets. We have our highest average seed ever for an NCAA tournament featured in the Sweet 16, including a 15 seed in Oral Roberts, who took down Ohio State in the first round and then took down Florida in the second round. They look to knock off Arkansas this weekend. And so we've got the Sweet 16 matchups, a few that I'm looking forward to. Of course, you got Loyola Chicago, who looked so very impressive against Illinois. If you didn't catch that one, this Loyola Chicago team is for real. They're the 8th seed in the Sweet 16 and facing Oregon State, the 12th seed out of the Pac-12. Pac-12 had a great showing, unlike the perennial big conferences all year in the Big 12 and the Big 10, who didn't show up nearly like others thought they would. But it's called March Madness for a reason, and so the Pac-12 is standing strong. You got Villanova and Baylor on Saturday as well. Oral Roberts, Arkansas, and Syracuse, the 11th seed, who took out my Mountaineers with Buddy Boeheim and that terrific shooting and that difficult zone defense, matching up with the Houston Cougars, who are 26-3, and people doubted them, including myself, and they had a great comeback win in the second round game against Rutgers. They looked like their back was against the wall. They looked like they were done, and Houston was able to pull out a late victory in the second round to set them up with the matchup with Syracuse. So that's the right side of the bracket. Out of there, I mean, obviously in the top right region, the Midwest, I like Baylor. Baylor, Villanova, Oral Roberts, Arkansas, I like Baylor out of there. And then Sunday's matchups, Gonzaga, Creighton. Creighton's going to need some luck on their side to knock off the Zags, who are looking very impressive. I was going to say my matchup of the day, but I don't know. My matchup of the day, just because I need them in my own bracket pool, is Florida State, Michigan, and I need Florida State to come out with that one. We'll see. A defensive-minded team against an offensive-minded team that can really shoot it. We'll see how that one plays out in the East region. UCLA, Alabama. Alabama, the 2 seed. They are a very fun team to watch. So if you're trying to watch, one game, if you ain't got time for all of that on a Sunday, one game, you should probably watch UCLA, Alabama, because that's a good game. And Alabama likes to run. I heard a statistic this weekend that said that Alabama only takes 3% of their shots from the mid-range. Other than that, They dunk, they lay it up, and they shoot threes. 3% of their shots come from the mid-range. Unbelievable. They're so quick. They run like a 7 seconds or less offense kind of vibe, and they're just good. And the night game, the last team that will be punching their ticket to the Elite Eight is Oregon and USC, another Pac-12, two Pac-12 teams doing battle in this one. Both teams looked very impressive. Oregon knocking off Luka Garza in Iowa, and USC knocking off Kansas by about 30. That was a fun one to watch, just as an anti-Kansas guy myself. But great games. It's been a great tournament so far. Out of those regions, real quickly, man, it's tough. I mean, Gonzaga, obviously, I'm going to take them. I want to say Florida State, so I'm going to out of that East region. So we'll see. So according to my changes, I've got Gonzaga and Florida State representing the East and West regions in the Final Four after this weekend. So again, the weekend consists of games starting on Saturday, Sunday for the Sweet 16, and then the Elite Eight Monday, Tuesday. So by Tuesday the 30th, we will have our Final Four set, and I'm saying that that's going to be Gonzaga, Florida State, Baylor, and you know what? Let's just take Loyola out of that bottom right region featuring Syracuse, Oregon State, and Houston. I'm going to take Loyola out of that region. They blew me away how impressive they looked. On the offensive end, on the defensive end, those dudes are going to be a tough out. And I think Oregon State's going to find that out really quickly this weekend. Hey, that's it. That's it for this episode of the Baseline FaceTime podcast. Trade deadline edition. March Madness, Sweet 16. Little quick preview of that. And hey, if you like what you heard, please hit that subscribe button. It would mean a lot to me. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts. You can find us on YouTube. Contact me, Baseline FaceTime Podcast on Instagram. You can email me, baselinefacetimePodcast@gmail.com. Again, this is episode 35, March 25th, NBA trade deadline edition of the Baseline FaceTime Podcast. Peace. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Baseline FaceTime Podcast. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.